So this is a topic I have to address. The Broken Arrow press beta took part. I messed it up already. So this is a topic I have to address. The Broken Arrow press beta took place in April. Part of that press beta involved a 4-day multiplayer event from Tuesday to Friday, where we got to play the latest version of the game. I was privileged to be a part of that, as was my colleague here, NoiceGuy, also known as the Autistic Armchair General, and he made a video, just came out, talking about the meta. And in this video, which we won't cover point by point, he basically says the Russians have the advantage in the air. This gives them the advantage in the whole game, and the game is Russian biased. I'm here to tell you that that is completely wrong, and I shall now explain why with PhD level analysis. So I'd like you to watch my PowerPoint presentation, and it's called It's Not Fair by Mr. Hippie, no PhD, because I haven't finished it yet. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go through every single game I played in the press beta. It ran for 4 days. I managed to play 17 full games. There were more games, but basically some of them lagged out, so we didn't get a scorecard at the end. And I'm going to go through the team stacking and the win rates, and put together all that analysis at the end to prove to you that there is no Russian bias in this game. Let me just double check I'm recording, because I'm not doing this again. I've got a problem with my microphone. Right, there we go, sorted. Sorry. So this was game one. Every single one of these games will be available in the description. You can go and watch every single game I played, and you can come to your own conclusion. And I really would appreciate it if you do watch them, because I need the money. Anyway, in this game, the Russian ELO was 800 higher than the American ELO, and unsurprisingly, the Russian team won. This is NoiceGuy here on the American team, no doubt coming to the conclusion that the Russians are OP, when in fact it's because they had 800 ELO higher than us. If you know anything about chess, you know that that's a really big difference. Next slide, please, editor. So, game two here. Basically, some of the guys were like full on press, as in like Kotaku level. I've never played the game before. These guys have an ELO of question mark because they've literally not played enough games. And I had them down as 1300 ELO, which you might say is a bit low because ELO starts at 1500. But if they've literally never played the game before, well, look, if you've been in that situation, you understand why I've put them at 13 ELO. There is one exception. One guy was on like a second account, and he'd actually played it a lot of times before. I'll point it out when I see him, and I put him at 15 ELO, 1500 ELO. Anyway, in this case, I'm on the Russian side. The American team had the higher ELO, and the American team won. And here's NoiceGuy here on the American team. Next slide, please, presenter. In this case, right, American ELO 400 higher than the Russian ELO. The Americans won. Here's NoiceGuy here. Here am I. In this case, so this is a surprising one. The Americans actually had the higher ELO here, and the Russian team won. Now, this might have something to do with the fact that the guy who had the highest ELO in the game, my good friend and colleague here, LDE, went 4,230 kills to 9,770 deaths with a KD of 0.43. And also he took less zones than me. Next game, please. This was a 4v4. The American ELO was higher than the Russian ELO, as you can see over here, and the American team won. And here's NoiceGuy here on the Russian side. Next game, please. This is Americans versus Russians. As always, the Russian team had over 1,000 more ELO than the American team, and unsurprisingly, the Russian team won. Next game, the Russian team had 300 ELO higher than the American team, but the American team won. So here's one where the Americans had the lower ELO and still won. Here's NoiceGuy here with that American ELO. Next game, here's another brand new player, had him at 1300 elo, but on the enemy team there's a brand new player with 1300 elo, so these two bounce each other out, and you can see how much of a detriment they are to their teams. I've got absolutely nothing against them, it's a press event, people get to come in and play. I'm just saying from a purely competitive standpoint, having a guy who's never played the game before on your team is not great for you. But like I said, I'm not hating on them, it's a press event, where else are they supposed to try the game? So, in this case, the Americans had the higher elo, and the Russians won, and I was on the team with the lower elo there. Yeah, yeah, and I still won. Yeah. Anyway, in this case, the Americans had over 1,000 more elo than the Russians. They had a brand new player on the Russian side, and we beat them quite handedly, as you'd expect. Next game. Here, the Americans had the higher elo again, over 200 this time, and the Americans won. Here, the Russians had 1,000 elo, 1,100 elo more than the Americans, and the Russians unsurprisingly won. I did call NBK out for these lobbies. I was saying, like, some of these Russian lobbies, man, they were proper stacked, and he was like, nah, no, they weren't. Well, there's the proof. Anyway, here's our guy, NoiceGuy here, on the American team, no doubt coming to the conclusion that the Russian team is overpowered, when in fact it's because they have over 1,000 more elo than us. Next game. NoiceGuy on the American side. Russians higher elo. Russians winning. I hope you're noticing the pattern here. Next game. Americans higher elo. NoiceGuy Russian side. Americans win. Higher elo. Next game. Brand new player on our team. The Americans, they had the higher elo. These guys were also like a 5 German stack. They all spoke German together, and we were I don't know, we were losing, I guess. So there you go. The Americans won, higher elo. Next game, the Russians had over 1,100 more elo than us. It was another Russian-only speaking team, so tends to be higher elo, and they won. And this was the one where I said to NBK that team was very stacked, and he was like, "Nah, no, it wasn't." Well, it was. Here's the proof. Next game. Russian 600 more elo, Russian victory, not particularly surprising. Brand new player on the enemy team. Here's NoiceGuy on the American side, no doubt coming to the conclusion that Russians OP might have something to do with the guy with 8,000 deaths and 4,000 kills on his team. Next game. American victory. I believe this was the last game played, so we're about to go into the analysis. But I'd like to take the time to thank the generous channel joiners, generously joining the channel. I am a full-time PhD student, and I haven't finished it yet because I keep adding up numbers on this video game instead of doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and they are my sole source of income. If you don't want to support the channel in that way, please just like the video. I really do appreciate it. But yeah, here we go. Americans, higher elo, winning. So let's get into the analysis. So these are the raw results on the right here. I guess you probably can't see my well, who gives a toss? You can't see my mouse cursor, but these are all the results. And what are the results? The US had a win rate, and I played more games than anybody else in that press beta, apart from probably Beagle, who's this like Australian streamer, I think, and NoiceGuy. I think played 2 or 3 more games than me. Games were running concurrently, so we weren't always in the same lobby. But I think he might have played 2 or 3 more games than me. I have to give him that. Anyway, I played the second or third most games in that press beta out of anybody. I was there all the time. You can ask anybody. They'll tell you how much they loved having me on their team. So, US win rate, 53%. Russian win rate, 47%. Does not matter. Because in 82% of the cases, the team with the higher elo won. So who's surprised, right? And you can see how many times did the American team have the higher elo? Because you could make the claim, okay, the Russians are stronger, so people who always play Russia would obviously have a higher elo because they're always winning, so the elo analysis doesn't make sense. Except the American team had the higher elo 59% of the time, and the American team won 53% of the time. So it's the higher elo team winning all the time, more or less, right? The Russian team had the higher elo 41% of the time. This is the part where NBK tells me the Russian team wasn't always stacked, and he'd be right in saying that. And there were only 3 cases where the lower elo team won. And in 2 of those cases, the Russians won, and in 1, the Americans won. Oh my god, Russian bias. Anyway, I'd like to talk about the real tragedy of this event, which is that I was placed on the lower elo team 59% of the time. This is an anti-hippie bias. Why am I always on the lower elo team? That means I'm winning less, and people always say in the comments, hippie lose again, hippie lose again. It's not my fault. I was put on the lower elo team. Slytherin, please. Anyway, TLDR, no Russian bias. This is not a personal attack, but I'm right.